All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into alkaloids.
Ooh,
Yeah,
alkaloids.
so have you ever had coffee or tea?
Of course, who hasn't?
Well, you've had alkaloids.
Really? I mean, I know caffeine's in there, but
That's an alkaloid. Yeah, so alkaloids are like, think of them as these natural compounds, and they're mostly from plants, but sometimes fungi and animals too. But the thing they all have in common, they have these basic nitrogen atoms.
nitrogen. Okay, like the stuff in the air.
Exactly, yeah. And a lot of the time they form these like rings.
Rings, like a chemical structure.
Exactly, yeah, like a ring structure. And they have like some really powerful effects on your body. Like that's what we're going to dig into today, like what makes them tick.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've got my attention with the coffee thing. I had no idea.
Yeah, right. So we can like group them based on where that nitrogen atom is. So there's true alkaloids where it's like actually part of the ring,
Oh, okay.
like morphine.
Morphine. Okay, strong stuff.
Yeah, powerful painkiller, right? And then there are protoalkaloids where nitrogen's there but not in a ring.
Gotcha.
And then there's pseudoalkaloids, which are like, they act like alkaloids, but they're not derived from amino acids the same way. So like caffeine's a good example. It's actually from purines.
Interesting. So different sources, different structures.
Yeah, exactly. Shows you how diverse they are. So really, today, we're just trying to give you a clear picture of what alkaloids are, where they come from, and some key examples, and then why they matter so much in medicine.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely interested to learn more. Like, beyond my morning coffee.
Exactly, yeah. So let's start with the plants.
Okay, sounds good.
What comes to mind when you think of like powerful plant compounds?
Well, I mean, poppy plants, opium.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's where we get morphine, which we talked about, and codeine.
Right, both pain relievers, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's the cinchona tree. You ever heard of that one?
Cinchona rings a bell, but I can't place it.
It's where we get quinine.
Quinine, that's for malaria.
Oh, you
right?
got it, yeah. And it's a really fascinating story how they discovered it.
Oh, I bet, yeah.
And then this one might surprise you, but coca plants.
Coca plants, like cocaine.
Yeah. But like before it was, what it is today, they actually used it as an anesthetic.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
So these compounds, they can be pretty versatile, huh?
Yeah, and then there's periwinkle.
Periwinkle, what, like the flower?
Yeah, the Madagascar periwinkle. And this one's super important because it's where we get vincristine and vinblastine.
And those are used for
Chemotherapy.
chemotherapy, yeah.
Yeah, they target cancer cells directly.
Hmm.
Pretty powerful stuff.
Wow, so a little flower doing all that? That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and then, of course, coffee and tea plants like we were talking about.
Right, our good friend, caffeine.
Yeah, that's a stimulant that, lots of people rely on.
Yeah, I mean, me included. So, like, how do these things work, like in our bodies?
Well, that's a great question. So morphine, for example, it's what's called a mu-opioid receptor agonist. Basically, it attaches to these like pain relief centers in your system.
Okay, so it sort of blocks the pain signals.
Yeah, exactly. And quinine, it works by, it basically stops the malaria parasite from being able to process hemoglobin.
Hemoglobin, that's like the stuff in our blood.
Yeah, so it basically starves the parasite.
Makes sense.
And then with cancer treatment, vincristine, it works in a completely different way. It stops the formation of something called microtubules in cancer cells.
Microtubules, that sounds complicated.
They're like, imagine them as scaffolding for the cells.
Okay, like the structure of the cell.
Yeah, so vincristine disrupts that so the cells can't divide.
Interesting, so it stops them from multiplying.
Exactly. And then caffeine, it keeps you alert by blocking adenosine receptors in your brain.
Adenosine, isn't that something to do with sleep?
Yeah, it usually promotes relaxation. So by blocking it, caffeine keeps you awake.
Uh-huh, I see. And what about galantamine? That's for Alzheimer's, right?
Yeah, it helps with nerve signaling, so it can be really helpful for people with Alzheimer's.
Wow, so all these different mechanisms, all from plants. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really is. And then, of course, the question is, like, how do we get these compounds out?
Right, from the plants to the pill, so to speak.
Exactly, yeah. So one method they use is called acid-base extraction. Basically, they use the fact that alkaloids are basic to separate them from the rest of the plant.
Okay, so like a chemistry trick.
Yeah, it's pretty clever.
Yeah.
And then they usually use solvent extraction and then
Yeah.
purify it even further with, like, chromatography.
Chromatography, I vaguely remember that from high school chemistry.
It basically helps isolate the exact alkaloid that they need for the medicine.
Cool. So, I mean, we've talked about all these different uses, and it sounds like alkaloids they're pretty important.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, they help manage pain. They fight diseases like malaria. They're used in cancer treatment. They can even help with conditions like Alzheimer's.
Yeah, it's a pretty impressive list, you know. And it makes you wonder, like, what else is out there?
That's a great point, yeah. Scientists are constantly looking for new alkaloids, and they're even looking in new places like endophytic fungi.
Endophytic fungi. What are those?
They're fungi that live inside plants.
Hmm.
So, like, we might find a whole new source of alkaloids there.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
Yeah, and then, of course, technology is changing everything. Now they're using computers to help find and optimize new alkaloid-based medicines.
That's pretty cool. It sounds like there's a lot of potential for future discoveries.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess like the big takeaway here is alkaloids. They're these nitrogen-containing compounds, mostly from plants. And they have all these different structures, and they could have really powerful effects on our bodies.
Right, from that morning coffee to, life-saving treatments. They're pretty vital to human health.
Yeah, exactly. And it just makes you think, right? Like, with all the biodiversity out there, who knows what other incredible compounds are just waiting to be discovered?
Yeah, it's exciting to think about what the future holds, for medicine and just our overall well-being. There could be all sorts of breakthroughs out there just waiting to happen. And who knows, maybe some of them will come from alkaloids. Thanks for diving into that with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure to explore these topics. And thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, keep on diving.